I am Flavia Bellieni Zimmermann from the Australian Institute of International Affairs in Western Australia, and today we have with us AIIA Research Chair Professor Mark Beeson from the University of Western Australia. And today we are going to be discussing Professor Beeson's new book, Rethinking Global Governance. Thank you for being with us,
My
Professor
pleasure.
Beeson. Professor Beeson, if you can please explain to us why do we need to rethink global governance?
I think there's some confusion about what global governance is at any time, but at this particular moment in history, I think a lot of people have lost confidence about the idea that global governance is possible at all. And basically, we're talking about the ability of states to work in cooperation with each other and with a variety of non-state actors and other bodies in what some people think is a transnational form of civil society. So there are a lot of things going on. There's a great need and arguably demand for global governance to address big changes like climate change and regulating the international economy. But the reality is it seems to be becoming increasingly difficult to actually realize that. So this is why I think we need to kind of think about what global governance is, what it could be, and what the obstacles are for actually trying to achieve it.
Thank you. And please explain the main challenges today for global governance and international cooperation worldwide.
There are a whole range of problems you could point to, but I think the most fundamental one is the relationship between the state and other actors. For better or worse, the state is still, I think, the most powerful actor in the international system, and some leaders of states are very keen to preserve rather than share sovereignty. And people like Donald Trump spring to mind, of course, and a range of authoritarian leaders around the world, including Brazil, where you come from, Russia, Turkey, China. None of these leaders are very keen on the idea of sharing sovereignty or cooperating very fully with other countries. So that's quite a problem. And some of the kinds of issues that governments would like to address are very difficult for them to achieve any progress on their own. So there's a fundamental tension between what states would like to do in different areas and their reluctance to give up what they see as vital national interests and sovereignty. And I think, unfortunately, the European Union is the best example we've got of states being willing to cooperate with each other and to put national interests and sovereignty aside. And yet the European Union has lots of problems at the moment, as we all know, and people are losing confidence in its ability to be able to address some of these challenges as well. So that's another layer of complexity, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. And Professor Beeson, if you can give us a little bit more of detail how an uncertain world order will affect global governance and international cooperation, because you started mapping it out, but if you could give us some more detail.
Well, I think it requires a degree of leadership from somebody, and one of the big challenges in the global order at the moment is that there's an increasing tension and rivalry between the two most important and powerful countries in the world, and that's China and the United States. There's fundamental disagreement on the kinds of issues that should be addressed and the way that they should be addressed. And there's a rivalry about who should lead some of these kinds of processes. I think there's also a really significant difference between the way that political and economic practices occur in both of those countries. And that's another source of tension and a difficulty in resolving what the template should be for international cooperation more generally. There are some important and interesting examples of international organizations that are designed to try to encourage cooperation, but they're either associated very strongly with the United States, the so-called Bretton Woods institutions, or some of them, the newer ones, things like the G20, are often seen as not that effective and still likely to be captured by some of the more powerful countries in the world. So that's a bit of a problem and a challenge as well.
Thank you very much. And wrapping up our interview, Professor Beeson, if you can please give your opinion regarding the UK now under the leadership of Boris Johnson and a global uprising of populism. How do you think it might impact global governance in the near future?
I think what happens to Britain, I don't think is that important for the rest of the world anymore, and I think that will become increasingly apparent to the British themselves. I think as they come to terms with the situation that they've found themselves in, and indeed manufactured for themselves. So I don't think Britain's fate is that important to the rest of the world. It certainly is to the British. But I think Boris Johnson's symptomatic of a wider set of problems that, as you suggest, populist figures with allegedly simple solutions to complex problems have become more prominent around the world. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think the problems for Europe will be exacerbated by the fact that somebody like Johnson has become a prominent figure in Europe. The one, I think, optimistic possibility is that the problems for Britain may be so serious that other Europeans will recognise that there's still some real value in being part of an institution like the European Union, because it does offer really tangible benefits and some way of actually trying to address important problems in a way that simply can't be done unless they do agree to cooperate in some meaningful ways. So I think people like Johnson and particularly Trump are symptomatic of the times in some ways, and the desire of some policymakers to put their own national interests first. But if we're serious about trying to address problems like climate change in particular, for example, it's simply impossible that any single country can hope to do anything meaningful or significant or affect the kind of changes that we really need to see by working on their own. If we don't cooperate, nothing's going to happen. So the stakes are very high, but I think it's very clear that the only way forward is to try and promote some kind of global governance, no matter how difficult and how unlikely it might seem at times.
Thank you very much, Professor Beeson. Pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome.
For more information, please visit our website www.internationalaffairs.org.au. Thank you.